dust storm from yesterday subsided. Things are beautiful. In the meantime, what about the skies over the Arab world? How have they reacted to the fall of Saddam and the birth of democracy in their own neighborhood?
Steve wouldn't ask me a question like that. It's way too long. He's going to ask an expert, and I think I know who he has in mind. Imran Anwar. He's a journalist and Middle East analyst and came in here. You go back to Pakistan often, you have a real perception of what's happening. So right now, since that statue fell, how has, if at all, the Arab world's perception of what we're doing in Iraq changed?
I think the fall of the statue was very symbolic in more ways than one. One, obviously, the change of the regime. But even for Muslim countries that may not have sided with the United States in the war against Saddam Hussein, statues are very un-Islamic. So that in itself was a good thing for them to see that this was not a Muslim, a fellow Muslim that was brought down, but it was an evil tyrant who was probably having delusions of being God or something. So in that sense, it played out to our advantage.
How do they rationalize the celebration?
The celebration of
the freedom, of the fall.
Obviously, everybody knows that when you give freedom to people, whether it's Arabs in a country like Iraq, or whether it's people in Pakistan or in Kashmir or in Palestine, wherever, that people will celebrate. You take away an evil dictator from on top of them, they'll be happy. The bigger problem, though, is that people would rather see this to be a long-term process, not something that just happens in the short run. If you do not solve the immediate problems that they have, food, clothing, water, healthcare, etc., jubilation can turn to frustration and then to anger against us. Because then people can say, hey, listen, I had none of those things plus instability. With Saddam, I had stability at least. That's what the damage.
And the looting is subsiding for the most part, and Iraqis are putting on their police uniforms and going to work.
Yeah, this is not live.
No, this is filed. But what is going on is, as we move on from the looting, suddenly we're talking about, well, where did all those guys go? The guys who are running the Iraqi government, and we've heard from Defense Department officials, they've gone, a lot of them have gone to Syria. The problem is, okay, so right next to Syria, they've got this brand spanking new democracy. Syria, Colin Powell says, you know, we're not going to start a war with them, but they better cough those guys up. How do the people in that neighborhood on the Arab Street feel about our attentions now turning towards Syria?
See, I'm not a big fan of Syria, never have been, and hopefully will be when they become a nice and democratic country someday. The problem that people will have is not support for Syria or a dictator, basically. He's the son of a dictator who's in power, which is really kingdom without calling it that. The problem is people might say you have more immediate problems to deal with. The first one being bringing stability and democracy to Iraq, solving the much promised and ballyhooed Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Here's the problem. If you have people, for example, in the inner cities, and they are worried about drug dealers, and they're worried about not having enough police to fight crime, etc., and we say, hey, you know what, we'll get you NBA coverage on your TV channel, they'll say, hey, that's great, but that's not what I need right now.
Exactly.
So we need to solve the problems that are important to the people right now.
But in the meantime, what's really pressing is we will not have a total victory until we know where Saddam Hussein and those top guys go. And if they go to Syria, we're going to have to do something about it.
I think they're probably in like a bunker somewhere. Him and Osama bin Laden, they've probably got Elvis playing for them or something. But the serious fear I have is that even if these 50 guys have taken a nice little, you know, bus tour and they're in Damascus somewhere, in the immediate challenge that we face, catching them today or a year from now is not the problem.
So the immediate would be, go ahead, finish.
Stability in Iraq, bringing them food, water, shelter, etc., and showing them immediate benefits of our having liberated them.
Bring me to this Nasiriyah yesterday. We had a meeting. We have an invitation-only meeting, 50 people in there, into that tent. Some people said, the Shiites said, I'm not going. I'm protesting. Other people just yelled outside. Where are we at in that process? Do you like the first step?
I think I like the first step. They might not have liked that it was a tent. They might have wanted a building or something. But the problem, I think, is that they are expecting the Iraqi people, they're expecting democracy to come in like this. It's not going to happen because there are contradictory requirements. If we impose people within, like, next Monday, we have a government in place, they'll be perceived as puppets. If you take 1 year, well, what the hell were you thinking when you came in here? So it's a no-win situation in that sense, but it's not a terrible no-win situation. It's something that can be managed.
Just real briefly, fast forward 2 years from now, the feeling on the Arab Street toward the United States once democracy is working.
It should be a real democracy, not a puppet of the United States. It can be pro-America. It can be used then to put two kinds of pressure on countries like Syria, Iran, and other Muslim countries.
How about Saudi Arabia?
And Saudi Arabia, because we're the ones who protect Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and that backfires on us in the Muslim world.
All right. Imran, Anwar, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right.